Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and in this video I will be showing my 2008 Honda Ridgeline with the Raptor lining paint job, and I will be breaking down what materials, paint, and safety equipment that I used, and of course the big question is how much did it all cost? So I will be touching base on all those points, so stay tuned. Alright, so before we jump into the rest of the video, let's see what the car used to look like. As you might have been able to tell, I had a long road ahead of me, but I think the results speak for themselves, and I think it looks pretty good. But let's get to what you wanted to see. Okay, let's start with the safety equipment. And in my view, this is pretty much non-negotiable because unless you want to have long-lasting effects from the dust and the actual paint, you definitely want to use the safety equipment. Now you can choose to buy it from certain places that you like, but I'm just going to show you what I used and let you decide if you want to use the same product or a different product. Okay, and here are the most important ones that I'd used, which number one is eye protection, number two is face mask and filters, and number three is clothing, and number four is gloves. Okay, the eyeglasses that I chose are these ones right here. They're the bubble type. I call them the bubble type. I don't know exactly what they're called, but they cover basically everything around your face, but you can still have your mask on this thing, and you won't have any spots where stuff can get into, like these, which I did use for sanding and stuff like that, but these obviously won't protect you from splatter or anything like that. Then let's move on to the gloves, and you can use any type of gloves. I use this 7mm thickness gloves from Harbor Freight, and here's specifically what they look like. Not very pretty, but they do the job, so that is very important. And I didn't have a single one break on me, and I used probably one, I think, for pretty much the whole project. So these are definitely great. And then we have the mask, which this is a 3M, but you don't need to get a 3M. You can get any manufacturer that you like. This one is great because it has this little neat handy feature where this lifts off, and it allows you to take this down while you're working on a project, or excuse me, after you work on a project, and flip it down so you can speak or breathe easily, and then put it right back on by pushing this thing down, and you don't have to undo the straps or anything. So I thought that was pretty cool. But it's basically just another a standard mask with the 3M organic filters, and these filters actually will filter out many types of products, acetone, all sorts of bad odors and smells. I don't like to take chances with my health. So that's one thing that I did not skimp on. And we've got the coveralls. And you can use your regular clothing if you want. I just use the coveralls because obviously it's not going to dirty up my stuff. And these are pretty thick, and I just wear them out in the garage. So it's important because the spray of the paint and stuff gets all over the place. So you're definitely going to want to protect yourself and your clothing. Okay, next we had the all-important paint, which was the Raptor Liner. And I got the black that was tintable, and of course I did not use a color. You can actually tint it whatever color you want, or you can buy it directly from where I bought it from Amazon with a tint already in there, and they have several colors to choose from, which is very, very cool. And that's actually why I went with Raptor Liner. So in the future, I can either buy more to put on here that is already colored, or I can go with another paint because you can actually paint on top of this. It says it in the instructions from Raptor Liner themselves. But it took me 8 bottles, and let me tell you, it was pretty much every single drop of those 8 bottles if you want to do it correctly. And that is just painting the actual truck itself, not the bed liner that is in this thing. So if you want to have a pretty decent paint job without, you know, a lot of I guess your original paint showing through, because it will go on thin if you don't put enough coats on there. And I put 2 coats. One was a real light coat, the second was trying to get the texture that I wanted, and it was a little heavier. So 8 bottles did this one pretty good, and obviously it's a smaller truck. If you want to do a larger truck, like say, I don't know, a Chevy Avalanche or a Ford F-250 or 350, something like that, I think you might want to grab an extra couple of bottles just in case, because you don't want to run out while you're doing your project. But like I said, with this one, it only took 8 bottles. Okay, and finally we have the materials that I used for the job. And number 1 was paper, and that is basically stuff that I use to cover the windows and like the headlights, because on this truck you can't actually take the headlights out without it being such a big ordeal. And then the masking tape used to put that stuff up, and then cover anything that is smaller that you don't need to actually put paper on. You can just cover with a few pieces of masking tape. And then the rags, which I basically cut my own, so those were free. A screwdriver and socket set. You might think that's kind of weird, but that is actually for taking off stuff that you don't want to paint over and you don't want to mask over. Like actually my taillights, it was just easier to remove them on this vehicle, and it only took a couple of minutes. And like the bed rail caps and stuff like that, I just removed them so I didn't have to paint around them or mask them off. And those were free, which I purchased them at Harbor Freight a long time ago, so I can give that in the total price, but like I said, those were free to me because I already had those. The next is a degreaser, which is basic degreaser, and a final wipe product, which is kind of like a degreaser, the one that I use, but it is more of an acetone product, and that takes care of like fingerprints and smudge marks, which I didn't find the cheaper ones were very good at doing that. So I actually got 2. Anyway, number 6 was sandpaper, 60 to 80 grit, and I think in the Raptor lining it mentions that it wants you to use 80 grit. but I had 60 grit, so I started using that, and then I finished up with 80 grit because I actually ran out of the 60 grit. So you can use both. It seemed like it worked out pretty much the same just by looking at it. They just wanted you to rough up the surface. And then lastly, an air compressor, and I have a 8-gallon 125 psi maximum air compressor, which I will show you here in a second. And that's an important part because you need that to actually spray on the bed liner. Here we go. This is the rags that I used, and like I said, they were free. So you can use whatever you want to use. You can buy them or you can cut up your own. But that's what I used, was cut up free rags. The next was I bought 2 types of the blue masking tape. You can just use one. This is actually what I ended up using, was this one right here, the smaller of the 2. And I used about 1 roll. So I would just basically just get 1. That would probably be optimal for you. Next is the sandpaper, and this is what I was talking about. I used an 80 grit sandpaper and a 60 grit, which looks like this, and pretty much the same size. Yeah, I know it's probably hard to see on camera, but it was basically the same result. So you can either use a 60 or 80 grit. Here's the screwdriver I already had. I've got many, but this is this specific one that I used. This is the socket set that I used. These 2, and I got these at Harbor Freight, like I said, a long time ago, but I'll show you the price on how much it is to get them. And you can use anything you want. You can use a drill with a bit on there to take your stuff off, or you can just mask off everything. It's up to you. And here is the final Prep All wipe that I used. It is technically a wax and grease remover, but this one is the best that I had found because it removes all the fingerprints and a lot of the stuff that this one right here didn't remove. And I got this at Walmart, and it's super clean, and it was good. I use this as a first wipe down, but like I said, this worked much better, the Prep All. So I recommend actually getting both. They're cheap enough, but you don't have to get both. You can just use this if you want. This was actually cheaper than this was, so you can just get one. But I like to, like I said at the end, this worked much better at getting all the fine dust and all that and the fingerprints. So I think it worked out much better. And this was the air compressor that I used. It is, like I said, a 2 horsepower, 8-gallon, 125 psi tank there, and nothing special, but it does the job, and it does it just fine. It was 60 psi that you actually between 50 and 70 psi that you're supposed to be having the provided gun that they give you in the paint kits, the working pressure that you're supposed to be using, and this thing was just perfect for that pressure and spraying the paint on it all day. Okay, and as promised, I told you I would do a quick how-to on how to do this. So first off, you want to take off the parts that, like I said earlier, that you don't want to have to worry about, like on my case, the tail lights and the bed covers and stuff like that. I just was lazy and didn't want to have to mask those off. So you want to take those off, and of course that's using the screwdriver and other stuff, the tools that I told you about. Number 2 is you're going to be wiping the truck or car down with a degreaser, and I used the Super Clean, which was the first stuff that I got from Walmart, and it worked okay, but that is the first step. The third is sand with either 60 or 80 grit, and the Raptor Liner recommends 80 grit. So it's your choice. Like I said, they look the same, so you can find the 60 grit at Walmart and not so much the 80 grit. And anywhere else you can find 60 or 80 grit. It's not that big of a deal. But at that time, the 60 grit was all I could find. So I used the 60 and it turned out great. Number 4, wash the vehicle with soap and water. And that is basically to get the sanding that you did off earlier. And that makes sure that you have a nice smooth surface to deal with. Number 5, that is masking off, which you use your tape and the paper that I showed you earlier to mask off the truck or the car. And I do this step at this time because I don't want to have to put it on earlier and then use soap and water and get that all wet and have it to do it again. So this is why I do it at this step. Number 6 is turn on the air, which is your air compressor, and screw in the provided applied application nozzle, which that comes in the kit that you buy on Amazon, which is nice. And it's actually a nice spray gun that comes with it. I recommend using that, and you put it on in this step. Number 7 is mix the hardener and the bottle together, which that comes in the kit itself. It's really easy. Just put I think a 7-ounce portion of hardener right into the bottle that you pour in, and then mix that together for about 2 minutes, which is just basically shaking it for 2 minutes, and you're good to go. Then number 8 is do a test spray, which you screw the application nozzle into the bottle itself, and then find a piece of cardboard or something and spray onto the cardboard to make sure that that's the type of spray that you want, because for your style, because it actually differs on how close you are to the material or how far away you are to the material. Okay, number 9 is apply 1 coat of the material onto your surface and then wait 1 hour. And the reason I say that is because that's exactly what's in the directions. And then after your 1 hour that you wait, then apply a second coat, because the first one is going to be really, you want to apply it very light. The second coat is going to be the heavier one to make sure that you got all your spots taken care of. And the thing that I love about this stuff is that on that second coat, especially when you apply it a little more thicker, it will fill in a lot of the low spots on your car, which what I mean by that is, like, if you have any smaller size dents or stuff like that, it actually will fill them in and you won't be able to see them. So this product is great. Anyway, and so let's move on to number 10. Then you pull the tape off after about an hour, in my case, after I applied it. And it basically, when it's still kind of tacky, and that's to make sure that you're not pulling it off and taking off paint, or if it's really super hard to take off, because this stuff, once you let it dry, which in step 11 you let it dry for at least 1 day, it is hard to take off. I made the mistake of leaving some of that stuff on there, and yeah, it was tough to take off because this stuff dries so hard. So I recommend taking it off just about an hour after your last application, the masking tape and paper, and then you should be just fine. And like I said, let it dry for at least 1 day. I let it dry for 3 days, and in the instructions it says for if you're going to use the vehicle light duty, and I imagine they're talking about actual truck bed, then you want to wait at least 3 days. They say minimum 1. For light duty stuff is 3 days, and for the maximum hardness and heavy duty
applications like throwing wood and stuff in there, that you want to wait at least 5 days. So I waited the 1 day and it worked out really good. So I don't think you have to wait all those days, but that's what the instructions say. So if you're really want to follow the instructions to a T, then I would wait the 5 days. And real quick, I know I said paper, and I was supposed to show you in the previous steps there, but this is what I'm talking about, is just this paper to put over your glass and stuff like that, whatever you want to mask off with. But you can use newspaper or anything like that, and I got this at Walmart also. So there you have it, guys. In the interest of not making this video a year long, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. But hopefully you liked it, and if you did, hit that like and subscribe button, and basically show me your pictures and stuff like that if you're going to do this project, because I would love to see it. Thanks very much, and I will see you later.